Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host Anthony, the Great Rivardo. Today we are talking all-pro snubs. James Bradberry, Blake Martinez, Graham Gano, Leonard Williams. Snub, 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 snub. And I'm pissed off because I feel like somebody, at least one of them, deserves some sort of recognition for their performance this year, especially with the defense playing as well as it did. But before we dive into things, I have my daily joke of the day for you guys. I think you're going to like it. And Anthony hasn't heard this one. I know he's already cringing in his seat, but it's a good one, I promise, all right? What do the Cowboys and the post office have in common?
I don't know, Alex. What do they have in common?
Neither deliver on Sundays. Not bad.
Not bad. Pretty bad.
Hey.
Not bad enough.
Not bad enough. It's not the worst. It's like a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, maybe. Give me some credit here.
Okay, 5 out of 10. That's the best I'm going to give you.
5
It's
out
a
of
pity
10?
grade. You get a 5 out of 10. Yep. So anyway.
All right, well. I'll settle for 5 out of 10. One day I'm going to get a 10 out of 10, and it's going to be the best day ever. I'm going to give away some stickers or something. But regardless of that, we're talking all-pro stuff here, all-pro snubs. And the Giants, you know, they did have some really, really talented players this year, especially the free agent signings. Like I mentioned, Leonard Williams, I consider him a free agent guy because he was hit on with a franchise tag. Obviously, James Bradberry and Blake Martinez, two guys that, you know, came onto the team and we didn't expect to be as productive as they were and as efficient, but they ended up being the focal point, the foundation of this defense, really holding things together in the secondary and at the linebacker position, especially with young guys like Trey Crowder, Devontae Downs, who we don't trust, and a bunch of other guys that were rotated in and out. But I think, this is interesting, Anthony, and I want to get your take on the All-Pro. You can, list off the guys who actually did make it and, talk about did the guys on the Yankees, or rather the Giants, thinking Yankees because Francisco Lindor and everything with the Mets. I'm a poor Yankees fan right now. But with James Bradberry and Leonard Williams and Blake Martinez, did they deserve to even make it in the first place?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to convince me that there were 4 cornerbacks in the NFL that played better than James Bradberry this season. There's no way you can convince me of that. James Bradberry was phenomenal. I don't think throughout the entire season he never let up a reception of 25 or more yards. Like, that's insane. He had a few picks. He had a lot of passes defended. He at one point was leading the league until Xavier Howard just went off and continued to go off. But James Bradberry statistically was one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, and then not even statistically, but analytically and through the film, he was definitely one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He was absolutely top 4. He definitely deserved to have a spot on the All-Pro team, at least second team. He really should have been there. And then Leonard Williams, I think that he, 11 and a half sacks. I think the thing is, though, the voting, it doesn't start, at the end of the season. He probably started a few weeks ago, and there was a few-week stretch where Leonard Williams wasn't exactly lighting up the box score, and that's probably what hurt his votes. And then once he had that 3-sack performance and finished the year with 11 and a half sacks, the All-Pro voters were probably like, oh, man, maybe we should have voted for Leonard Williams. But it was too little too late for Leo, unfortunately. And then Blake Martinez, that's a guy who he gets slept on. I slept on him before we signed him. I wasn't a fan of the signing. Now I love him. I think he was phenomenal this year. I definitely think he had the capabilities of being an All-Pro, but that's another position where there's a lot of talent, linebacker. There's a lot of talent at the linebacker position. The guys who made it were Bobby Wagner and Fred Warner for the first team, so I would, and Darius Leonard. I would put probably all of those guys ahead of Blake Martinez too, probably, like all respect to Blake Martinez. He was phenomenal this season, but those 3 guys are, they're all pro elite talents, like you cannot replace them on your defense. They're those level of players. And so in terms of the interior defensive line, you have Chris Jones and Cameron Hayward. I think those are the second team guys. Now I'd say Cameron Hayward. I think Leonard Williams could have made it over Cameron Hayward. And, I don't think that Chris Jones really had the season that he, usually has. DeForest Buckner made the first team IDLs along with Aaron Donald. It's kind of hard to get past any of those. But I think if you're going to pick somebody to take off of the All-Pro team, would have been Cameron Hayward, and you put Leonard Williams there. But then in terms of the second team defense for the linebackers, Roquan Smith, I'd probably say Blake Martinez could have made it over Roquan Smith. It's debatable, but I think we had a really good shot at getting these guys on second team All-Pros, but the first teams were really good this year. And even, cornerback, I don't think there were 4 cornerbacks that played better than James Bradberry this year, but even if you look at the cornerback position, it is loaded with talent. Jair Alexander and Tre'Davious White were the second team, and on the first team, it was Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. So, as great as James Bradberry and all these players were, there was just a lot of talent at those positions this year. The Giants had players playing elite level talent at elite talented positions. So I don't know. It's like unfortunate that they're such loaded positions, but it doesn't take away from the fact that those guys were phenomenal for the Giants this season. James Bradberry at least is going to the Pro Bowl. Martinez should be, but he's not. I feel the most bad for Martinez. He deserved some recognition for the season that he had, and he really didn't get any in terms of awards. But he really should have, and same with Leonard Williams. He deserves some sort of award, and they got some votes for the All-Pro team, but they're not going to be on it. So all of that, like I said, very disappointing, but you look at the positions that they're playing at, it's just a very talented NFL that we're playing in, and that we're watching. So I understand to some extent why they didn't make it, but like I said, if I had to pick one that absolutely should have, James Bradberry should have been in the top 4 corners in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to read off Blake Martinez's stats for a second because they are pretty phenomenal. And he got snubbed from both the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro team. And, he responded to one of my tweets a couple weeks ago. He's like, now we make the push for All-Pro. And he finished off the season strong. And, we're talking about a guy who broke the record for most tackles in Giants franchise history and didn't make a Pro Bowl or All-Pro team. So it says a lot to me, what they're expecting from these guys. And it really interesting, the Giants really went after guys in free agency that were healthy. He hasn't missed a game in 4 years, which is insane. This year he had 151 combined tackles, 86 solo tackles. He almost had more solo tackles than Alec Ogletree had combined in his first year with the Giants, which is insane. He had 9 tackles for a loss, 6 quarterback hits, 3 sacks. He had, 2 forced fumbles. He had an interception. He had his career low 6.2% missed tackle rate. The guy was an absolute stud. He didn't give up a single touchdown in coverage this year after giving up 2 in 2019 and 5 in 2018. They really found his strength. That was the best thing in terms of Blake Martinez, that Patrick Graham, he knew coming in what Blake Martinez was good at doing, and he wanted him to fill those gaps, play against the run, really stop the run, focus on shutting that portion of the game down for opposing teams, and they did just that. They did a phenomenal job just completely taking out opposing teams' running games, forcing them to throw the ball, and it really hurts their momentum because it doesn't allow them to use play action properly. It really takes out a whole section of the game plan and the playbook for the opposing play caller. So Blake Martinez, when he was on the field, we noticed him. He was a guy that we realized he was running around. He was always making stops. He was always around the line of scrimmage. He was always, getting to players or wrapping guys up or at least helping his teammates in assists. I think he deserved to be a Pro Bowler, maybe not all pro, but at least a Pro Bowler. I consider this one a snub. As for James Bradberry, I mean, the guy, we know him. We call him, Bradberry Island at this point. The guy is an absolute stud. He hasn't let up much, if at all. He let up 3 touchdowns this year. 2 of them came in week 1, I believe. So it's like, he did a phenomenal job after that first week performance against Pittsburgh. And even then, it wasn't terrible. Honestly, I think that some of these guys really deserve more credit for what they did. I mean, Bradberry had 18 passes defended, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. If you don't look at Xavier Howard, who had 10 interceptions, you look at Bradberry and you say, that guy's an all-pro level talent, man. He had a phenomenal year. Yeah. 54 tackles. I mean, what else can you ask from a cornerback who actually forced 2 fumbles? That's super impressive to me. He let up 4 touchdowns, like I mentioned before. 2 of them came in week 1. The other 2, scattered throughout the rest of the year. But he was just an absolute shutdown player for the Giants that I really feel is a staple moving forward. And I do want to give one interesting statistic, compared to 2019. Patrick Graham's defense this year was just incredible. And what I mean by incredible is they averaged 22.3 points per game allowed. 22.3, okay? Last year under James Betcher, the defense allowed 28.2 points per game allowed, which was good for 30th in the league. Okay, the Giants went from 30th in the league in points allowed to 11th in one offseason. Tell me, just that is incredible, mind-blowing. You can't do that without Pro Bowl level players, and that's why we're sitting here talking about this right now, because for the way that they played, and I think a lot of the guys that are on this list are on winning teams and are on playoff caliber teams. Yeah. I think that has a big a big say in it.
It does.
I think if the Giants made the playoffs, if their offense was better, kept the defense off the field, didn't give up a lot of points, because the offense does directly correlate to the defense's production. If the offense was more productive and they actually scored more points, they took off more time of possession, the defense would have looked a lot better than they were, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these guys not make the Pro Bowl, because of our offense being so lackluster. So with that being said, really good luck to Jason Garrett in his Chargers interview this week. They call him the Zen master of hook routes. Speedy receivers love him. He's one of the most intuitive and creative play callers known to mankind.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think he was the first man to step on the moon. Not totally sure about that, but the guy is just an absolute incredible offensive coordinator. Best of luck to him in his interview with the Chargers, and I really hope he does get the job, because if they don't want a Zen master, we will gladly keep him and then dispose of him properly. That's just how it is.
Yeah, man. Like I said, can't think of a better OC to pair with Justin Herbert than than Jason Garrett. But in all seriousness, you mentioned it. When you look at this defense and the improvements that they made from 2019 to 2020, a lot of that, yes, we give credit to Patrick Graham. He was phenomenal. The Giants just signed him to an extension and gave him a raise because he was so good this year, right? But a lot of the credit also has to go to the new players that we acquired. The defense got a lot better from one year to the next, because there was a lot more talent on this defense. Leonard Williams, he was here last year for half of the season, but this year in this new scheme, he stepped it up and he really showed a whole nother level of talent that a lot of people didn't even know that he had. And then James Bradberry, major improvement over Janoris Jenkins. Huge upgrade there. So there's another big upgrade in talent. And come on, Alec Ogletree to Martinez, huge upgrade there. So yeah, this defense deserves a lot of credit for really the strides that they took this year, in terms of the coaching, the players that we acquired. It's a whole new team, a whole new defense, and those three players that we just mentioned are a big part of that. And, even Dalvin Tomlinson took a big step this year, even as a pass rusher. He's been great. He's a guy who, is going to get a nice payday this offseason and could even have, I think he definitely should have gotten some Pro Bowl votes, if at the very least. But there's also one other guy that we haven't mentioned yet who did get one or two All-Pro votes, and that's Graham Gano, our kicker. He was phenomenal for the Giants this year, and I think he was really underrated. He didn't even make the Pro Bowl, didn't make the All-Pro. I feel like he should have made one of those teams. He hit 30 straight field goals. That's insane. 30 straight, that's a Giants record. He missed one field goal all season. It was in week 2. He went, 14 weeks in a row without missing a field goal. That is kind of insane to me. It's really crazy.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Point. He had 3 50-plus yard field goals against Dallas. He was the only reason we even stuck in the game the first time, even though we lost. He was the reason that he had 4 field goals, 3 of them are 50-plus yards, franchise record. That's a record in the league. There is no quarterback since the start of the no kicker since the start of the Super Bowl era that has hit 3 50-plus yard field goals in one game. And the guy didn't even make a Pro Bowl. Unbelievable.
Not to mention, but I will mention it, the story of Graham Gano, the comeback, You want to talk about comeback player of the year? Yeah, that's completely going to Alex Smith, as it should. But, another year, it might go to Graham Gano. He missed all of last season with a hip injury, I believe, right? As a kicker, to have hip surgery and come back from that and then swing that hip around and kick that leg and kick 30 straight made field goals and 3 from 50 in one game. The comeback that he just had from that injury, he earned the contract extension midseason. He absolutely deserves that. He was phenomenal this year. He should have gotten some sort of recognition. I think you mentioned it, though. The Giants just didn't win enough games to get any recognition this year. They only won 6 games. You look at the All-Pro team, it's full of, teams that are going to the playoffs. It's like a real playoff team is in the All-Pro this year. So, and that makes sense, and I totally understand that. I just, I wish that these guys would get a little more credit, because I do think they deserve a little more credit. And then I also want to mention one last player who did not make the All-Pro team, didn't even get a vote, and he shouldn't have, but he did make the Pro Bowl, and that's Evan Engram. I was a little worried that, he was going to make the All-Pro as well, and then we were all just going to be like,
who's paying?
What is the NFL seeing?
Who's paying who?
Who is Evan Engram paying off at this moment? Who is in Evan Engram's basement? So I don't know. Yeah, Evan Engram, what a story he is. You know, imagine if he did make the All-Pro team, though, the confusion that the Giants fans would have, and then, you know, the trade value increase that he would receive for that, maybe? And we would just be like, yeah, let's get this first-round pick at Evan Engram and wrap this up, right?
Deshaun Watson for Evan Engram straight up.
Yeah, straight up. I wish.
No, I hear you. There's a lot of weird, things like that. And Evan Engram making the Pro Bowl, even he was surprised. If you watch the video, he was like, really? I had no idea that was coming.
Dude, he looked just as shocked as we did. It was crazy.
I know. I mean, the guy dropped 11 balls this year and was directly responsible for 5 interceptions.
The stats on that, I think he gave up 35 points through interceptions.
Yeah, 35 points. He's the reason we missed the playoffs. So there's that.
He actually is, yeah.
He's the reason we missed the playoffs. And let me throw this in there. He's accountable for almost half of Daniel Jones' interceptions. Almost half. Okay? Just tell me.
Dude, just imagine if Stickum was still in the league. If Evan Engram just had some Stickum. You know, like the Giants would be ridiculous. Like the Giants would be a Pro Bowl team a playoff team, and maybe even a Super Bowl contending team if Evan Engram had Stickum.
It's just ridiculous to me. I looked at his stats this morning. I wrote a whole article about it, and he had one of his worst seasons to date. Believe it or not. His pass blocking was his run blocking was the only thing that improved this year, but he was not a good receiver. He had his second worst catch rate of his career. The only thing he actually did this year was stay healthy. That's the only thing he did. And I don't even understand how Robert Tonyan, who had 10 touchdown catches, didn't make it over him because Evan Engram had 1.
That did not make sense.
You know, so I don't even know what fans voted for him in the first place. I guess maybe I would if he's on the board. I'd just do it for the hell of it because I'm a Giants fan, but at the end of the day, I might not even do it because I'm a Giants fan. You know, like I don't even think he deserved it. But here's the last thing I want to wrap up with, just because I do think it's important to talk about in terms of, you know, retention for next season for this defense. Do you think that the Giants are going to extend Leonard Williams? And I will say blatantly, they are going to extend Leonard Williams, whether it's on the franchise tag or a multi-year deal. That is Gettleman's golden goose, and the fact that he's retained tells me one thing: that guy is not going anywhere, and I'm okay with that. Honestly, I'm actually happy with that. So I think there's two different arguments to be said for what they gave up for him and, you know, how well he's performed. I don't actually consider those things to be cohesive. I think that they could have signed him as a free agent, probably got him for cheaper instead of trading away 2 picks. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't think they should have traded for him in the first place. But I do think he is a very important part of this defense who was extremely productive this year. He ranked 3rd in among interior defenders with 62 pressures. He had 11.5 sacks, a career high. The guy was an absolute stud against the run, as he usually is. He's an elite run stopper. He's an above-average pass rusher from the interior. He can line up in the 0 tech, 1 tech, 2 tech, 3 tech. The guy is an absolute stud along the offensive line and the trenches. So I really do think he deserves this multi-year deal. I just really hope it's not like a monster deal where it's like over 20 million, even over 19 million per season, because that would really, really hurt us in our ability to spend elsewhere. But again, you have to incorporate the fact that the cap space is going to go up next year. So, you know, whatever you're spending now is not going to be, let's say this time in 3 years, 2 years from now, like it'll seem like a good deal. You know what I mean? Like that's how the cap is going.
Okay, yeah, in terms of the Leonard Williams trade, as you mentioned, yeah, we might not agree on the actual trade itself and the way that it happened and the signing and free agency and all of that kind of stuff. But at this point, we can all agree that doesn't really matter anymore, and we have Leonard Williams, who is really just one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league, and we know that we need to keep him around and build around him. And Dave Gettleman knows that. Like you mentioned, Dave Gettleman is back this year. He's not going anywhere. He's going to retain his golden goose, like you mentioned. Leonard Williams is here to stay. He needs to stay. You know, I think as soon as we saw Patrick Graham was staying, we should know that Leonard Williams is staying too, because of the breakout season that Leonard Williams had in Patrick Graham's system. You know, a lot of the times these players just need a different scheme. They need a different team around them, different coaching staff around them, and that's what Leonard Williams finally got, and clearly he is a perfect scheme fit with Patrick Graham, and that's why he had the year that he did. And I think going forward, the cap space might become a problem, and he's probably going to cost around $20 million a year, but I don't see the Giants letting him walk no matter what. I think that they will retain him. But another thing that I'll say is I don't know if there's any other teams in the league that would be willing to pay him over $20 million. I don't know if he would actually get that on the open market. If he were to hit the open market, I don't know if anybody would actually sign him. It could be similar to what happened with Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney. how, no team wants to sign him. So if the Giants want to take a risk and get really ballsy and let Leonard Williams just walk into free agency and then let his price just naturally come down, they might be able to do that, but I think that's a little bit risky. I think at the very least you just want to put him on the franchise tag, wait till June, cut Nate Solder, cut Golden Tate once their dead cap is dropped significantly in the month of June, and then probably sign Leonard Williams to an extension. That's my prediction as to what they're going to do with Leonard Williams, but maybe they'll just strike a long-term deal with him before we get to free agency. Either way, I'll be happy with it. I want to keep him around. I think that he should have been an All-Pro this year. If not, he was really close to being there. I think he got 1 vote. He needed 10, but I think he should have gotten those 10. He was great this year. And a lot of these guys on defense were as well. And, we mentioned the other 2 guys who should have made the All-Pro team, Blake Martinez, James Bradberry. They're signed on for at least another 2 years, so that they want to keep those 3 together and definitely sign Leonard Williams and keep that core of defenders around for the foreseeable future.
Yep, that's right. That's really the primary goal for the Giants this offseason. Keep that core of defenders around and really upgrade the offense. As John Mara said, and Gettleman, they need to allocate resources toward the offense. I think the defense is pretty in good shape, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think the defense is in great shape, and like you mentioned, a lot of the defense's, weaknesses or weak moments this season were caused because of the offense. The offense not being able to stay on the field, the defense getting gassed. So the offense and the defense are directly correlated. They're related to each other, and the way that one plays significantly affects the way that the other plays. If the Giants had a better offense, the Giants' defense would have been even better than it was, which is scary to think about because it was already so good. So if the Giants could fix that offense this next season, this offseason, it's going to be big for them in terms of roster building. Dave Gettleman's already promised that they're going to go after some playmakers, so take from that what you will, whether or not they're going to draft a receiver, sign a receiver, or what. If they get a receiver, and the offense improves next year and they put up some more points and they sustain some of those longer drives, we're going to see an even better defense. And then just altogether a better Giants team that's absolutely looking at playoff potential and should make it. And if they don't, then I am so ready to move on from Dave Gettleman at that point if they don't make the playoffs next year. But that is another discussion for another video.
Mm-hmm. That's a discussion for another year. We'll see what happens with Gettleman and co. And what happens with the success he had this past season if it rolls over in 2021. If all these free agents do it too. But with that being said, that wraps up our Pro Bowl snub video, All-Pro snub video. And I think that they probably deserve some more respect. I think the Giants were a winning team. Maybe it's in better shape. We're talking about some guys that actually are in the All-Pro. But as always, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants in this awesome video. Of course, we appreciate the support. As always, we have a new Discord channel. You can see it on our YouTube link. We're going to be posting it as a highlighted comment on every video. So you can find us there. You can join the Discord. It's a private server where we're always on. You guys can talk to us. We're going to do cool stuff like, play video games with you guys and, do other things, get requests for film breakdowns and analysis for draft prospects. So we're going to be really using your feedback and actually putting it to the test and putting it and making it a reality. So this is all for you guys. As always, appreciate all the support, and we will catch you guys on the next one.